Tom Martin, and welcome to another episode of A San Francisco Conservative, the new podcast series featuring yours truly, Tom Martin. I'm a longtime journalist. I've produced stories for ABC News, CBS News, CNN, and so on. And my co-host is author David Parker, joining us from San Francisco. If you've heard some of our previous episodes, you know that David has a great sense of history and really puts the important issues of the day in context, which is something that's very rare to find, as a matter of fact. David's books include Income and Wealth and A San Francisco Conservative, and has a new book of essays coming out very, very shortly. So, hey, David, how are you?
Hey, I'm fine.
Great to see you.
That introduction is exactly correct.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, well, that is a quality that I love about your books, and they're inspiring and insightful, and they're a nice contrast to books that are written by college professors and so on, like, who mean well, but they're not in touch with what really goes on in the world. So I know with you we're getting the real deal. So I appreciate that. One of the benefits of working on this podcast series, collaborating with you, is that I get an advanced look at the essays as you write them, basically. And as we're heading into a fresh new year, I'm always excited about the idea of heading into a fresh new year. We were talking recently about, I think it was a question from a journalist from a magazine saying, well, David, can you tell us, what did we learn last year, and how can we use that to look forward to make the most of the next year? And you said what?
That's an academic mindset. A person in business is not just thinking at the moment. You can't think at the moment and go very far. People in business are thinking in 10 and 20 year time frames. And so it's irrelevant what happened in 2022. Because in one sense, what happens every year happens every year. The economy is either rising or falling or holding steady. And so you're not going to plan 1 year in relation to the past year, because it's always one or the other. And even within a year, it may do all three. You can't think that way. A professional investor would never even ask that question.
Yeah.
And that's an important point.
Interesting. And I know, way back a few years ago when you were starting your teaching career, I know you were a public school teacher there in San Francisco in the public schools, teaching music for 40 plus years. And sort of coinciding with your start of that career, you started getting involved in real estate investing, commercial and residential. And it sounds like, again, from some of our recent conversations, it sounds like there's some people maybe even active in that field of real estate investing, commercial real estate investing, who say now is not a good time to look for deals. And what did you say to that?
There's no such thing. My point is, there's no such thing. You just have to have a little patience and have a little feeling. My school teaching has a lot to do, and my jazz musicianship has a lot to do with my real estate investing. I'm waiting for someone to say something, or give a feel for something. Right now, for example, in San Francisco and for sure in New York City, not everybody is making offers on office buildings. I'm making offers on office buildings right now. I don't care. That market will come back. It won't come back exactly like it was. But maybe you'll have an office building that's part retail, part housing, might have a movie theater on one of the floors. Mm-hmm. That's the future. Or art galleries, or people sharing one office, and 10 tenants for one office space, sharing one secretary. Yeah. That's my plan for one of my buildings that I have coming up here, for either a law office or an art community, or an art gallery. Yeah. I mean several, all in one building, sharing one secretary, one person who answers the phone, type of thing.
Yeah, that sounds excellent. I would love to spend time in a space like that. It's funny, over the past 2 or 3 years, as people have been dealing with the pandemic, I guess somebody even put a label on it. They said the Great Resignation, like, okay, everybody, run for your lives, work at home. sometimes literally run for your lives, but don't, we're not going to be working in the office and so on. I mean, my daughter, who's 25, is working for a financial investment firm in New York City, and so they been staggering number of people in the office and having the 6 feet distance and so on. I think they're moving away from that again, or getting back to the way it used to be. But it, with the vision that you just described, it doesn't matter what happens, because there will always be a need for people to do things, to connect with other humans. We can't be totally digital and remote. So
no, for this, the reason that any business likes to be in a neighborhood where their competitors are in the very same neighborhood. One, it brings people into they're coming to your office. They figure, well, I'm not sure about this person, but I know there's 15 other people in that neighborhood. I can shop around a little bit. It's worth it, my time to come in.
Yeah.
And for employees, they have to talk to each other a little bit. You never know what someone's going to say, or what your competition is going to say. You go invite your competition out to lunch.
Yeah.
Even on the lower levels. They don't have a 40-hour week in an office. No, you don't need that anymore. But you can't have 0 hours in the week, because you're out of touch.
Yeah, yeah.
You become you risk becoming like an academic whose thumb personally is not on the pulse of the economy, because they're not personally invested.
Yeah.
Interest rates go up. They say, I don't care. Yeah, but if you would care, if you had 25 buildings,
yeah,
you would be very sensitive to it.
Yeah, that makes sense. A number of years ago, I visited a friend who ran a shared office space, again, kind of like WeWork or something like that. And it was in what they call Silicon Alley in New York City, a bit smaller, than massive Silicon Valley where you are. But it was interesting. A lot of young people, a lot of people in their 20s, and they were involved in different kind of startup businesses for the most part. And it just seemed like a really vibrant place where they were sharing ideas and talking. And I would just imagine that's a very stimulating environment for business,
What I'm saying, I suppose, is there's timeless laws of not just business and economics, but human behavior, of everything. And whenever society gets off a timeless human behavior, whatever it is, it's going to go down a wrong track. So people have to get together. It's just and human beings are social animals.
Yeah.
We're talking virtually, but that's not that can't be the only way we talk. In fact, I expect you to fly over to pretty soon, Tom.
That's right. I want to see your jazz. I want to see your jazz sextet. And hear them. Yes.
Yeah.
I look forward to that. So one of the points you made in this essay, sort of answering that incorrect, poorly phrased question from the magazine, I think makes an important point for people maybe who are just getting started in their careers, maybe people right out of college or high school, who just getting onto their career path. And you said when you notice an office building that you believe would be a great acquisition, you meet certain criteria. The bank looks favorably on you, as we know, and you're very successful. And so there's some things that young people getting started with their careers can bear in mind. Maybe you could give us some of that advice that might help them as they go down that road.
If you're just starting off, you don't even have to have too much knowledge. You need to acquire some income producing assets. And if you can finance into them, that's fine. If not, save your money and put some, buy them with leverage. But when you get a little more advanced, you don't care what the economy is, because you're looking for what's called a value added project or a value added capital project. So if I find an office building that's vacant, I'm going to have to spend some money and create the environment that I think will work. So that's a value added project. I'm not looking for an office building that has tenants and I hope they don't, when the leases expire, they don't leave and don't come back. that's not what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
When you become a little more professional, you start building up your savings, because then you can deal with strength. Whenever there's a downturn in the economy, it's not all industries or all businesses. And even within, for example, real estate, it's not all real estate that's downturned. Office buildings are downturned, and hotels were downturned. Hotels may be coming back. I don't really know for sure. But I was buying industrial buildings. That didn't drop one penny. In fact, those went up in price. And I bought 3 industrial buildings because people like Amazon, they need more and more, thousands and thousands, or anybody who's distributing goods, which is what happened during COVID for 2 or 3 years. Everything was being distributed by trucks, and they need thousands of square feet of industrial space. That stuff didn't drop a penny.
Yeah. Interesting.
It's a value, so if you're dealing with strength, that also means that when something goes bust, like office buildings, the mortgages may be more than the value of the building. In fact, most of them are.
Yeah.
The banks are going to be foreclosing, and they don't want to foreclose because it looks really bad on their financial statements, and the U.S. Treasury or the Fed, whoever monitors the bank's reserve requirements, that says, you don't know what you're doing. We're going to force you to increase your reserves, which means you have less money to lend. We may even put you out of business because so they don't want it. So if you approach a bank and say, the mortgage is the value of the building, just give me the mortgage, and you're free, you're out of it. You don't have to foreclose. If there's a foreclosure, I'll foreclose. And the bank may say yes, but they won't say yes to anyone. You have to show them that you have cash, that you can hold that for a few years, even if no rents come in. You can hold it.
Yeah. Okay. So, great advice. I'm sure
that's professional investment.
Yeah, and I'm sure many of our viewers and listeners will take that advice to heart. Excellent insight. And I just want to take a moment. We're about midstream through this particular episode. Again, you are watching or listening to a San Francisco conservative. It's not just David Parker right there, author David Parker, but it's also the title of David's most recent book, A San Francisco Conservative. And if you are watching this on YouTube, the YouTube channel, A San Francisco Conservative, the podcast, please go down and click on the subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. Also, go down to the comments and let us hear from you, because we'd love to include your comments and have a little give and take with you. We appreciate your interest. So, David, again, getting back to this essay, again, you're a great person to provide a contrast to, quote unquote, conventional thinking, because there are certain buzzwords. And again, I come out of the news business. So all of my colleagues use these buzzwords, and you're telling us, hold on a minute, you don't need to think like that. We're talking about recession. We're talking about inflation. We're talking, terms like this. And in your essay, you mentioned that there's anxiety in the world, and you say, or actually the question is, there's so much anxiety in the world. Is that what will inform 2023? And give us your take on that.
Yeah, it will, but it's an amateur take on the world. We have anxiety for all kinds of reasons. One is we're living in a Zoom world, and we're living in a world where everybody's so self-conscious, and everybody's thinking about themselves and thinking about everybody else, when in fact, that's not how you get ahead in life. You have an idea and you pursue it, and you just lead your own life and not be so self-conscious. That brings a lot of anxiety. In the news is a business, and we forget that. It's a business of holding viewers' attention long enough to view the next commercial.
Yes, that's true.
That's what the news is all about.
Yeah.
And there's only a few things that will really do that. A fire, because a human being cannot walk by a TV screen and see a fire and not stop. It might be your home. You can't help it. It's instinctual. It's in your DNA.
Yes.
That holds your attention. here in California, we didn't have much fires this year. So they're showing fires from 2017. They're showing fires from the past. They have to show a fire all the time because that holds your attention. And black and white crime, that always holds your attention. And a commercial always has sex in it. That you can't help it instinctually. You can't not look at it for a second at least. If they get you to look at it for a second, they've done their job, actually. So the stories in the news are always the same every day. War, that'll be in there. That's war, crime, fire. The weather sometimes might hold your attention. And even sports might a little bit, but the sports, even that is always the same. It's always the home run. It's always a 3-point shot. So the news every day is the same, exactly the same, every day.
Well, I would, I agree with a lot of what you just said.
That makes for anxiety. It's always negative for the most part. Negative, you can't escape it.
Right. No, I would agree with a lot of what you say. I happen to think that quality journalists open our eyes to new opportunities and possibilities. So it's not only fires and.
Oh, okay. Gee.
But I understand your point of your point, and there is a lot of truth to it, and there's no denying that it sells commercials. It's all about getting ratings and selling commercials. I worked for Good Morning America for 3 years, and we were desperate to beat the Today Show because they were getting better ratings. And why was that our mission? Well, so that ABC, our owner, could make more money on their commercials. So absolutely. So.
Yeah. I'm really talking about the anxiety. So 2022 anxiety, yes, will bleed into 2023.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, or a few minutes ago, you mentioned, reminded us, of course, that humans are social animals, and you've worked in some very interesting fields over the years, especially public education. And you said the area that you live there in San Francisco is really a melting pot. Again, another one of those red flags or alarms that people are watching on the news is immigration. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen with immigration? Are we in danger? Are we losing our American identity and all these different things like that? But it sounds like you've had the opportunity over the years to really be part of that melting pot environment and hear people communicating with one another and sharing ideas, perhaps in your jazz band, and probably, I would assume in your business ventures also. I'd just love to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, I personally love the multicultural world. I live in it, and I grew up in it as a child also. But that's it's almost personal. We have red, blue, conservative, liberal political debate. That adds to anxiety because the candidates are extreme on both sides. You don't hear moderate voices speaking because gerrymandered political districts force that to be. But that creates anxiety, which is still fueling 2023. And the basic split in this country is not really coming out clearly. And if it came out, maybe that would stop some of the split. I believe the split is about interpretation of the Constitution. If you're a progressive, you're moving forward. We're an expanded view of the world, an expanded view of the Constitution. The Constitution's one page. The 10 Commandments is one page. The Golden Rule is less than a page. Progressives say, it doesn't apply to everybody all the time. Sometimes you got to kill somebody. That's if you can't live by some principle, you have nothing. So a conservative would say, we need immigration. We have a dynamic economy. All dynamic economies have an Achilles heel, labor shortage. This nation is in need of labor. China needs labor. They can't fill their jobs, even in China, with all their people. But that doesn't mean open up the borders because we need the people. 10 Commandments, Golden Rule, the Constitution, one page. you apply to come in. There have been points in our history where the application was very simple. You apply and we're letting you in, but you don't just walk in.
Yeah.
And we have to have an immigration policy, and we don't.
Yeah, no, it's an important issue, and it's funny. I think this particular conversation definitely needs a part 2 because we're out of time. But again, this has been a great collection of very stimulating ideas out, things that we don't hear every day, which is why I love these conversations, to be honest with you. And I just want to thank our viewers and our listeners for joining us today on the San Francisco Conservative. Be sure to visit David's website, davidparkeressays.com, where you can pick up copies of those books, Income and Wealth and a San Francisco Conservative. You can also purchase them through Amazon.com. And again, click that subscribe button on the YouTube page and let us hear from you. And any closing words, David, before we go?
Yeah, the closing words are your opening words, that I give examples of issues that are today, and I'm saying that those issues existed in the past. And when you read how 18th century, Age of Enlightenment, how Rome, first century Rome, and how 5th century Athens talked about these same issues at a much higher level of discussion, unbelievably higher. Why in the past an education was more classical. In Europe, it's classical. You read those authors, and we don't in America. But that's what my book is doing. I'm giving examples and showing how much better the thought process was, and we can learn from the past.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I give examples from business as opposed to examples from academia.
Yeah. No,
that's the attraction of my books, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I love all of those qualities. And again, as we head into a fresh new year, I think reading David's books, I'll just tell our listeners and viewers, will add a whole new perspective to the way that you look at so many important issues. So highly, highly recommended. But thanks for your time, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you.